What's going on, guys? Maldiva here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a guide on pretty much how to set up your Affliction Warlock for PvP. So we'll go talents, conduits, soulbinds, gearing, all of that good stuff. And I'm not going to really get into tier sets or any of that double legendary until we're able to access them and have them on our character, and I get to play around with it to see what builds I like with all that stuff and what changes. But for now, this is what we're going to focus on, what I'm playing currently. So if you guys want to jump into it and play, you can have the correct setup, or at least the setup that I've been playing and I've been enjoying. So who knows? But anyways, let's get into it. We'll start with the talents. So this is going to be my basic build that I play in 2s and 3s. A lot of it is similar to the older builds, but I've only changed out like one thing because of a nerf. But we'll start from the beginning anyways. So in the first row, we are going for Inevitable Demise. This is really good damage when it stacks up and also pairs with the legendary that we use. So good damage, also the self-healing involved with this. So it's a really nice little burst and sustain, because Affliction really needs that. For the 25, we are speccing into Agony. So if you want a max DPS with instant dots, Agony does a ton of damage because of the ramping up to 18 stacks. And with the loss of the Corruption Lego and not being as good, we don't need to really spec into Corruption because it's a super weak dot. So we're opting for the Agony for big damage. Now for the 30, we played Dark Pact because that got buffed recently. I don't know, one of the previous patches that was kind of recent, because we were always playing Demon Skin. But now Dark Pact is really good. So you have that to trade on a 1-minute cooldown. Really nice. Always helpful to have something like that. 35, Phantom Singularity. No question about that. The other two, just, yeah, pretty much PvE talents. I'd never spec out of any of those. Now when we get down to the 40, you can spec out of Howl. I'm default for Howl to Howl people, because I'm not able to cast Fears as much, depending, especially if I'm getting trained. I enjoy the Howl. It's a little shorter cooldown, but Coil can be good in 2s, or if, let's say, you're fighting warriors or just melee training you, this could be a really good option. Or if you have someone also on your team that shares the same DR as Fear, like Cyclone, so then you can just go for Coil, so you don't want to over DR it. And Howl's kind of annoying because the diminishing return tracker is bugged and doesn't track it. For 45, I am always playing Sacrifice. The other options just don't give enough damage, and Sacrifice does a crap ton of damn. Like, if you look at your breakdown, you'll always see this pretty high up there. It sucks that we have to sacrifice the pet for it, but it's just mandatory for the damage, and Affliction's all about doing the most damage possible. And now lastly, on the 50 tree, the only option that we have is Dark Soul. It's really, really strong. Finally got buffed, so it can no longer be purgeable. So very, very important to use this. Crazy offensive cooldown, and the damage that you get when you use this is just insane. So if you pair that up with all your other modifiers, it's going to be a lot of damage. So now we'll move into the PvP talents. So this is what I run default no matter what when I zone into the arena, and then I'll change accordingly, but usually only changing probably one talent because we don't really have many options. We have to stay with like at least 2 to 3 baseline talents at all times. It's kind of unfortunate. So we'll start with the first one. I am playing Rampant Affliction, so we can spread the UAs. That helps with our spread pressure. Because recently in this patch, Death Bolt got nerfed. It's now a dot over 3 seconds. So I really don't see it being all that worth it. I hated playing around Death Bolt anyway. It kind of killed the whole Warlock, I don't know, the philosophy around what Affliction is supposed to be. You weren't really Roddy. You're just sitting there trying to one-shot someone with this crazy bolt and hoping that your dots weren't getting dispelled. So I'm glad we can kind of swap out of that with the change to it. So my choice is to triple UA. Demon Armor, if you're fighting any physical DPS, you want to get that armor up. Demon Armor is a nice defensive, so I'm always spec'd into that because I'm pretty much always fighting at least one physical damage dealer. But let's say you're fighting double caster, you can swap out of that and go for the defensive talent. I would go Nether Ward. So if I want to be defensive, I pick Nether Ward. But you could go a little bit offensive and play Death Bolt if you choose. That's totally up to you. That's maybe what I would do. Normally, Affliction is really good at defensive play. You don't want to screw up and just randomly die, so Nether Ward helps out with that when enemy teams are doing their goes, like fire mages. So I'll just swap in Nether Ward. I hated having to play around with Deathbolt, so that's why I choose that. And then Rapid Contagion is a must-have no matter what. You always want to be playing this at all times. It allows you to spend your shards, but also the buff that it gives is really big, and it got buffed recently by 5 seconds. It used to be 15-second duration, so now it's 20. So you have really good uptime on that. Helps with your bursts. This also buffs Deathbolt if you do choose to play it. And it's just really good to pair with like Soul Rot, Dark Lair, Dark Soul, all of that, if you line them all up together. Alright, next we will go over to my Covenant and what Soulbinds I'm using. So I'm obviously Night Fae. I wouldn't play Affliction as anything else. I think Night Fae is the best. Soul Rot's just super, super good. And my Soulbind that I'm usually default to is Corain. So Corain is really, really good baseline Covenant thing because of Wild Hunt tactics. A lot of the time you're going to have to be kiting because you're pretty squishy. So depending on what's going on in the match, Wild Hunt tactics really helps you out. You'll pretty much have this speed boost probably up the whole game, if not like 80%, if you're keeping dots on someone that's full health. So this is really, really helpful. So that's one of the big reasons why I choose it. The Wild Hunt down here is pretty nice as well. But for me, I'm all about that move speed, trying to kite, Curse of Exhaustion, get away, all that good stuff. Now we'll get into the conduits that we use. So my first conduit that I'm using is the Soul Eater to buff Soul Rot, because Soul Rot does a ton of damage. If you see me doing like crazy damage, it's because I was able to line up a Soul Rot on 2 to 3 players. Like 2 minimum is just nuts, but if you can get it on 3, that's insane. And then you Dark Lair it, Dark Soul, Rapid Contagion. It's gonna be huge because everyone's kind of looking out to dispel Soul Rot anyway, because it does hit so hard. But yeah, definitely want that one. And we have our finesse one is the Shade, so our fear doesn't break from our dots. It slows it down a little bit so it doesn't instantly break. You can help peel for your partners and get crowd control on the healer. Let's say if you have 1 or 2 dots on them, it won't break instantly. And then Accrued Vitality. This is pretty much major must have with your Drain Life. This pairs really well with the Legendary and also Inevitable Demise in the talent tree. If you look at your healing breakdown, this hot is going to be pretty high up there, and it's one of the reasons why Drain Life is so good. So definitely must have right there. My next potency is Corrupting Leer. So Agony and UA have a 5% chance to reduce the cooldown of Dark Lair. This makes it so you can line up your Dark Lair with almost every Soul Rot, depending on how many UAs you have out, and if you're keeping Agonies up. So this is massive. You can get separate Dark Lair goes with your Soul Rot, because you always want to be using Dark Lair with Soul Rot. Very strong. Try to always keep it paired up with that and your Dark Soul. So that's like a must-have. And then we got Rolling Agony. Just quality of life, increases the duration of Agony so you don't have to refresh it as much, because it can get really annoying. Any GCDs that you can save are going to be important. So increasing the duration of this dot, and Agony is always going to be your top damage, most likely, unless you get a crazy amount of UAs out on the whole team, the whole game. But for the most part, yeah, my Agony is going to be the top. And then lastly, we have Demonic Momentum. So again, with the move speed that we saw with Wild Hunt, we now have 60% move speed when we port for 5 seconds. So this is going to help with kiting, getting away from those melee cleaves. Make sure they're slowed. You port, get away, and yeah, this thing is super powerful. And then last but not least, I guess we'll get into our gearing. So the stats that I go for in PvP are Haste Verse. I'm a big Haste fan. It just feels really nice in PvP, helps you get cast off before other casters, juke kicks easier, and also increases your DPS with your dots. So definitely must have stat. And then we'll go over the legendary. I went over it briefly, but for some people that haven't seen it, I'm playing Claw pretty much every game. There are some situations that you can play the Corruption one, but Claw is just my favorite. I mean, damage-wise and the healing-wise, the sustain, because it helps with my healer. I can just drain, and it relieves him, saves his mana, all that good stuff. So very important. And then you can see just everything Haste Verse. as much as I can. I'm kind of trying to prioritize more haste over verse because I'm just a big fan of it. And then I'm also using the proc trinket because I don't have any other new trinkets yet except the resonator, but I don't really like resonator unlock because it's kind of hard to land. But I might try the absorb trinket when I'm able to get that. But yeah, so that is pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Make sure you leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe. And also, let me know if there's any other topics that you want me to cover relating to Warlocks, PvP, all that good stuff. I'm going to be focusing on like Affliction gameplay. I don't really like playing the other specs. But yeah, just let me know, and I will see you guys in the next video.